In this assignment, we're going to learn about color psychology, which is the study of how color influences our choices in design and how we react and respond to a color being in front of our eyes and what sort of impulse and signal that it sends to our brain. We're also going to learn new techniques that Photoshop and Illustrator have introduced in the last year or so. There's always new things, and this is a great chance to learn them. And in the end, we're going to create a series of 3 designs. You really have a lot of freedom what you make. You're going to make one design, and then you're going to apply color theory to it, and hopefully you're using some of these new techniques to kind of get used to what Adobe is releasing so you can stay current with the new tools. The first thing I'd like to point out is the resource section of this lesson. I have 3 articles or documents there now. This might expand, but there's 3 of them. The first one is a color and emotions website, how colors make you feel. And this is like at the heart of what color psychology is. It's basically what emotions do we evoke from people as we see color combinations. So warm and cool colors, reds, yellows, oranges, cool green, blues, and purples. They make us feel a certain way. So you can browse through this article and get a gist for how the emotions come about. The second article is color psychology. Similar idea, but what we can associate with these colors, like how can we apply the design to these colors. It's not just an emotion, it's, well, how do I want someone to react? So it's a little step further. If we wanted to, associate our work with war, war propaganda posters, or warn someone of something, that might help you a little bit. So maybe a deeper dive into what to do with the colors. And then finally, this is kind of a cool chart. Breaks down every color that you might use and tells you a little bit more about it specifically. So a little more of a visual infographic about these colors. So those 3 resources are hopefully helpful. And also a Milanote, and of course this video right here. The Milanote is going to be for later on when we get into creating our design. So those are our choices right now. The first part of our lesson is to learn the new tools in Photoshop. There's several from the last year or so. We're going to learn the adjustment brush, selection brush, contextual taskbar, content aware fill, AI to text generate, how to generate an image, and then focal depth and Adobe Firefly. So all those are new things and may help you. A lot of AI based stuff that you should be familiar with. So we're going to use Photoshop for this, and I need something to work on, so I'm over in Unsplash. I have a Fox image. Go ahead and download that as large as you can, and then get that into Photoshop. I'm just going to do this another way. What is that called? It's called that. So I can open work another way. I could drag and drop this from my layers over to my panel, or I could just copy and paste it. And go ahead and center it if you want to. I'm using a letter size document. Okay, and position it. So look at this. I have this space right here, and the first tool I'm gonna learn is how to generate more background. And I'll need my contextual taskbar. So that is found under Window, Contextual Taskbar. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. So this will be the first part is this taskbar down here. You'll see that there's a few buttons available to us right now, and this will change based on what you have going. If you have a tool, if you have something that you're transforming, this will change all the time. You can move it around. So you can park it wherever you want to. You can turn it off if you want to. You can hide the bar if you want. You can pin the position if you're like, I don't want you to move, because when you resize your image, it'll move around. So there's some options over here. There's videos to watch. I'm just going to not pin it, and I'm going to place it right here because you can see. No, it's not moving on me. It will move around. So There it is. So it's moving. Then I have some options right here. Select subject. So that's a common thing. Remove background. That's a common thing too. Please recognize that you are creating a mask when you're doing that. So I see a lot of beginners just click this and go, oh, I want the background gone. Just kind of know what you're doing. It is creating a mask. Some other things that you'll see up here that are commonly used. What I'd like to do is I'd like to use this taskbar to do one task right here, and that's create more space. And you can do this with any image. You know, if I had this over here and I wanted to create more, maybe I have it over here, or I have the fox up here and I want more down here. And you don't want to spend an hour doing this, you know, rubber stamp stuff or creating a new sky or whatever. Let AI generate it for you. It is fantastic. And this part right here is, nobody knows that you're using AI. It is a time saver, big time. And sometimes that's what we need. So make sure you're on your layer. Grab your selection tool. You can do this with any selection tool. I'm just going to use the rectangular selection tool. And notice that my taskbar has moved, and now I have different options. Generative fill is the next thing in Photoshop I'd like to teach you. So if you click on that, you'll get this dialog box. It wants to know what you want. Now, we'll get into that in a second. All I want you to do is hit enter or generate, and it's going to process what it should make. And the more information you gave it, the better it's going to do. So it did a pretty good job of generating that. And what it does is it gives you 3 options. So I can click through those. 1, 2, 3. I also see them visually over here. That second one's kind of nice. And then over here on your layers panel, it gives you a layer and a mask. So you can turn it off if you want to. So it generates a brand new layer of artwork. That is such a time saver. Okay, so that's generative fill, and that's a blank area. Really, really helpful. The next step is generative fill. I'm gonna move myself over here. Generative fill. So I'm going to collapse these down. I know that I want to keep that. This is a common practice, either grouping things or collapsing them. I'm going to merge down. If I go to my menu here, there's a merge. Merge, where are you at? Merge, there you go. Merge down or merge visible. Merge down is going to take the top layer or the layer you have selected and merge it with the bottom one. That gets rid of all of my masks and everything, kind of cleans it up. If you don't want to do that, you can of course group them if you press the little folder down here or Control Command G. Now you have a group of them. If you want to merge a group, Control Command E also merges your group. So lots of ways to clean up your layer. You can also name your layer if you want to. Flux. Okay, what if I wanted to add to this? And again, this is artificial intelligence trying to figure out what to do here. And we're creating something based on prompts that is not copyrightable. And we can't use this in a final design. But let's say we're just trying to come up with ideas of how to go about this. I'm going to generate an image up here that some other artist made, or this model was trained on. And it's going to copy the style that I have here and add to my composition. It's fun to play with. I would definitely recommend just playing with this. So this is how to generate a new image. Make a selection. And we're going to type something in this time of what we want. Let's say if I wanted a bird flying. Bird flying. Adding to this, it's this new skill that we're developing right now is how to tell the computer what to generate. It's not a Google search. It's a description. It's white, and wings are wide, and maybe some other descriptors of soaring, and so on. So again, hit generate, and you're going to see that it's hopefully going to come up with something usable. That's pretty interesting. And it's pretty big. It's almost like in this, it's like a goose. It's almost in this like illustration style. Now, if you don't like that, you can always keep going. So you have some options here. We can enhance the detail. I'm over here on my properties panel, and you can also say, well, I like this, and we can generate based on this one here. So I could keep going. Maybe I could change my prompt here. Let's say maybe I wanted it to be an eagle instead. So I could keep generating some ideas. That's cool. I'm going to go back to this one because it's a little more of a soaring idea. So that's how to generate an image. And again, we have, it creates a layer and a mask. So it doesn't know how to mask it, so this is maybe going to be problematic. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. This layer right here is a box, so if I move it around, it just tried to match my background here. So I'm going to go back to, let's say, I'm going to use some of my old selection tools. I'm going to use my my quick mask. Actually, there's a better way to do this. I'm going to quick mask the background because there's just a box there. Holding Alt, it can come inside. If you don't like that, you can always use the object selection tool, and it'll do a pretty good job of that. So those tools, try to review them, and then I'm going to just Control J, and then I'm going to delete this guy. So now I have a bird here. My icons aren't working too well. I'm going to resize that. So now it's off in the background. And also, I'm just going to blur that a little bit. Filter, blur. Notice how the depth of field is falling off there. So I want it to look a little more real. Cool. Okay, so we created a bird, it's kind of blurry in the background. It's a great use for generative imagery. The next two tools are brushes. One brush is called the selection brush. This is a newer feature. So I have all my selection tools that I learned last time, of course, but I have a new one here. It's going to be right here in this third set. So I like the lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool, but now there's a selection brush. And you know, there's always going to be options up here. So yeah, we have opacity and we have size and add what mode you're going to go into. So I have a brush. Again, I can make that brush bigger, smaller. And when you paint, it paints with this opaque-ish pink. And you know, my image is kind of tough to see because it's pink, but you can see that you can paint, you know, right on top of here. So maybe that's helpful to you. I'm just going to use my little trick. Holding Shift, I'm just going to paint an outline of this selection real quick. Little taskbar is getting in the way. I'm going to pin it over here. Keep going. This is going to be really slow. If you have a stylus, that might actually be really helpful. You can also choose different brushes. And let's say if you wanted a brush that's got a little bit of a softer edge to it, that might be wise. Instead of, there we go. Instead of this hard edge brush. All right, real quick, and then I'll just make that brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to paint the inside. Oops, missed a spot. So just another way to think about selecting pixels. And then if you grab another tool, you can see, okay, there's my selection. I missed a spot. I'm going to add to that, I'm in the add section there. So if I grab another tool, it's just selected. So kind of cool. I can do all sorts of stuff with that. I could duplicate that. There's my flower. You know, I could change the color if I wanted to. So now I have a separate color. So I made a selection pretty easily with painting instead. So I think that's a great little tool. Deleting that. The second option for painting things that's new is called an adjustment brush. So again, it's the brush. New tool right here. Great little video to watch. I'm going to grab this, and then there's a lot of options up here. We have the type of adjustment that it's going to make, whether you're adding or subtracting, brush size. This one's nice too. If you have a subject, you can just use the subject selection to apply basically an adjustment layer to it, and then you have some options here. This is similar. So I'm going to use my stylus this time just to be a little quicker with my work. So again, you can adjust the brush bigger or smaller, and I'm going to choose hue saturation for the adjustment layer to be applied. Do that before you paint. So I'll just do a quick paint around this guy. And you can see on my mask layer right here, it adjusted the edge here. So I'm going to continue to paint. It's got this sort of red overlay, kind of tough to see again on my my particular image. Should have picked a different flower. But you can see my mask down here is getting pretty close. So there is a that'll work. Okay, and what it does is it automatically adds a adjustment layer to your panel. As soon as you start painting, there you go. And it's based on the mask that you drew. Very fast way to do something like that. I'm going to back out of this real quick. Control Command Z. I'm going to use this option. Bam. 2-in-1. I selected it, and then I applied an adjustment layer to that. That is the fastest way to make an adjustment happen to a subject if you can. So a couple of great selection tools. Another way to create something blurry or a depth of field in photography is to use Photoshop's new neural filters. So I have an image here, and I have a subject in the front that's got great focus and kind of a blurry background, but I really want to focus on this dog a little bit more. I don't want to see as much of the background. I want it to be blurrier. So I could go in and blur the background and mask things and all that sort of stuff. Or I could go to filter and then neural filters. These are pretty entertaining. Smoothing, there's some things that are in beta which are testing right now. Depth blur is what I want to access. So I'm going to turn that on. You may need to download that. It's a pretty quick download. And then what it does is it processes the image that you're working on. So it understands the depth, and it's creating this depth map, and it gives you a preview over here. There's of course some sliders to play with. If I wanted my blur strength to be up, my focal distance to be less, so I'm just going to make a quick change that you can really see. I'm going to crank up the blur strength so you can really see that the background's going to get blurry, and it also understands the foreground. And so while that processes, it doesn't have a little, progress bar or anything like that. It's just going to show up over here like that. There we go. So a little too much because my subject is getting too blurry in the foreground, so it doesn't really understand that. So where we had it before was fine. So I'm going to do that, and then you can also output this in lots of different ways. So that looks a lot better. Hit OK, and when you do that, again, it's going to create some sort of layers over here for you. Since this was a smart object, it creates a smart filter, which is very useful because I can go back in and edit that by double click here. I can also turn that layer off and on, which is pretty useful. Some of the stuff is nice, some of it isn't. It's also a mask, so a very useful sort of layer that's added. Next, we're going to learn about some new improvements in Adobe Illustrator. So some AI tools, some great new drawing tools to get down. We're going to cover things such as AI pattern, generative fill in the shape, really cool feature, some shape updates, how they use the shape tools, and then some things like intertwine, simplify, how to do a blend, might be useful for you, and then maybe some effects. So some things that are new, either they've added or we've never talked about it. So first things first, let's get into some new shapes. So we have our basic shapes: rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star tool. Those are the kind of the four main ones. The rectangle and ellipse tool, they're pretty much the same. So if I draw a rectangle, there's nothing different about that, so no update. The ellipse tool, if I draw a circle, holding shift, I do have this little widget here, and I noticed that there's a little difference here. I can make a little Pac-Man. Once I let go, I still have these little controllers, and they're on both sides. I believe before there was only one side, so little improvement there. These two tools are where the improvements are really obvious. Polygon tool. Remember, this is a multi-sided shape. If I let go, before it would just be done, and I can't edit the thing anymore, but you'll see there's these little controls. This one here for the polygon tool, I can continue to change the shape edges after I've let go. So I can deselect, select again, and then continue to change this. So it's still live. So that's kind of nice. You can keep editing. And of course, this little widget is the round corner tool. So you can change sides even with round corner tool. Very, very helpful. The star tool has even more modifications. So if I went star tool and then let go, I have a control here and here and here. So there's three. One, I can make more sides. So I could do a burst or something like that. Two, this little widget controls the outer radius of the points. And then this widget here controls the inner radius of those points. So very helpful. You used to have to do that before you let go of your mouse. So I love those changes. The next tool I'd like to show you is a blend. And this is not new, but something that you should definitely try. You can blend shapes together, colors together, ideas together. Let's try just doing a simple one. I'm just going to do a rectangle here, and I'm going to color it red. I'll take away the stroke. X, question mark. We'll get rid of something. So I hit X to switch my colors, and then question mark to change that to none. Alt drag, make a copy. Change the color. So we have two different, I'm going to really change that color. Let's go with something very different like blue. Let's do sputter colors. That's closer. Okay, we need to blend between the two colors and shapes. So I'm going to select both of those and go to Object and then Blend, Make. And it makes a blend between the two. And it's kind of this group. I can go back into Object, Blend, and then have some options here about how it works. So sometimes you'll do this and it'll say specified steps. And you can see there are 10 steps right there. So if I wanted this to blend in a little more chunky manner, I could do that. That's kind of cool. Or I could do smooth color. That seems to be doing a pretty good job. And another thing that's great about this is if I double click, I go inside of the blend, and now I can change the position. I can change the scale. I can change the color. That's not looking very good, so I might need to get back into options, blend options, and then I usually go with specified steps. I'm just going to crank this up to 200. So now it's better. Change my color one more time. That's cool. What if I made a rounded corner? Blends are cool. Another thing you can do is this line right here, this path, can be edited. So you can create some pretty interesting sort of looking shapes and designs based on playing around with the two shapes that are being blended together. So that's a blend. Next is a new feature called Simplify. I have a line that I drew here and it's fine. It does okay, but right here it kind of gets clunky. If I go to Object and Path and Simplify, I can simplify the number of points. So simplifying the line might smooth it out. Okay, so that does a pretty good job, but I still don't have a very good arc here. So simplify reduces the points. Next, path smooth. Smooth is new. And I can smooth this thing out. There we go. That's very useful. Don't go too far, otherwise you'll get there. And you can also do auto smooth, but I like kind of fine-tuning it there. So smooth and simplify for any shape, any line, any vectors. Another feature is called intertwine. And if you have ropes or things that are kind of weaving in and out of each other, you might try this. It's kind of an interesting look. I have a line here that I've smoothed out. And let's say if I want to draw another line, I'm going to grab my pencil tool and I'm going to have it kind of overlap like this. And I'll change the color to, let's say, green. And what I'd like this to do is I'd like the green line to start in front right here and go over top, but right here I'd like to go behind the blue shape and then in front and then behind. That's a lot of work. What do I have to do? Cut this thing up and move it ahead and behind, and oh my gosh, no way. So what I'd like to do is use this object intertwine. You gotta select it first. Object, intertwine, make. And then it's curious, like, well, what do you want to do with this? So I'm going to say, well, this part right here, I'm going to circle it. And then it'll just change it. So now you have this in front, and now behind, in front, and I want to change this part too. Bam. Intertwine creates the, I mean, it's so much easier than what you would have to do if you just broke the shapes up. So intertwine is kind of a fun little feature. Illustrator really upped its game as far as AI stuff goes, so there's a few things I'd like to show you. One of them is using a shape to do a fill. So if you can't draw, this is perfect for you. So I'm just going to grab my pencil tool and draw what I think is the outline of a bird. Start down here, draw a beak, maybe a head or something like that. Okay, I'm going to press D so I can at least see this. So I have a shape. It's not great, but again, AI is using models that it's training on to give you some ideas. We wouldn't use this in our final artwork typically, but it's kind of cool. Object, Gen Shape Fill, beta. So it's being tested. It's going to fill your shape with whatever you tell it to fill it with. So if I have a bird with red feathers, and again we have some similar sort of looks as far as this goes. How strong to stick with this? I'm just going to dial that back a little bit. You can upload a style reference if you want to, and I'm just going to go with generate here and see what it comes up with. It'll also give you 3 different ideas to pick from, so this first one doesn't have to be the one that you go with. Okay. So there you go. I'm also going to choose to open the Properties panel, Window Properties. I don't typically have this open. This is where your options are. Pretty amazing illustration. This outline I can get rid of. And what's neat about Illustrator generation is it is vector artwork that can be, if I ungroup it, it can be recolored for later. We might need to use that. So I'm going to group this again. So that is generative fill in a shape. So if you can draw kind of any shape, you can try out that generative fill and generate some ideas that might inspire you. Another generative tool is a pattern tool. Now we learned about how to use the pattern tool in Illustrator, and I would recommend using your own patterns. But let's say you can't figure it out and you just want to have the computer think of things for you. I'll press D for default colors. So I have a box and I'm going to go to Object, Pattern, and then there's Generative Pattern also in beta. So now you get to choose what to fill this with. I'm going to choose 10 different green tropical leaves. And so it's going to do the same thing that that Photoshop does, or our shape fill does, and it's going to fill in with a pattern. That's okay. Not exactly what I had in mind. And then you have your variations here. So let's say you like that. I'll close this up. And in your swatches panel, there is the folder with all of the patterns that it generated. So that's kind of nice there too. I'm going to take away the stroke. With patterns, again, it scales. So if I wanted my bird on a pattern background, bring this guy to the front. And there you go. There's a quick mock-up of that using two generative tools. The last tool is Generative Recolor. This one is a huge time saver and a welcome change to Illustrator, and I would recommend that you use it often. Let's say I don't like the color of my bird. How would I go about changing the color of that? Well, I'd have to ungroup it and pick every color and choose a different color for every shape. You can imagine how tedious that is. And also when you get to the end, you might be like, well, I don't like that. And you'd have to redo it again and again. Instead, grab the whole shape, and then we're going to go to Edit, Colors, and then Generative Recolor. Similar prompt here. You get some sample prompts if you want to go with that. I don't want him to be red. I want him to be, maybe I'm thinking of my color psychology and I want him to be a little more royal. Royal and purple, because those two colors kind of go together. Maybe blues, because I want to think of calm. And then I can use descriptive words like midnight and that sort of stuff. So use descriptive words, use color words, hit enter, and then let's see what options we get for our bird. Instead of red, we're going to go with one of these. And that's kind of cool. And of course, you can change it up and add some colors to it if you want to. But let's say I really like that. And all of a sudden, I've recolored my bird in a click. And now that looks better to me. I'm displaying kind of the emotion that I want to display with my colors. So generative recolor is very, very useful. Once you've made it through the training for Photoshop and Illustrator, and you've looked at the color psychology information and charts, now you're ready to start making something of your own. You have a lot of freedom in this one. I'm not going to put a lot of restraints on you, but the idea is to use some of the new training and also develop your own imagery that can be shown in different color psychology stages to evoke different emotions. That's the point. Make something that makes somebody feel something, change the color to make somebody feel a different thing, and do it again. So you'll have three things that are the same design, but different colors, so people are getting different feelings from it. And you can see how powerful color can be. So again, number 3, review the color psychology information that I've put up here. There's an article, there's a chart, there's about emotions. I'll have some more information on my Milanote if you want to check that out. Make your own. I'd highly recommend that. So that's 3. Review that. Get a feel for the colors that are appealing to you. Maybe you're into purples and blues and greens. Great. That works. It doesn't matter what colors you're into. Review it. Step 4 is the big one. Develop something. And I'm going to make a really generic post here. design something for Instagram or TikTok or whatever you want for a service or product with the new tools and color psychology in mind. So use some of the new tools. Use, make a shape in Illustrator and make your own illustration. So for this, you can use AI to generate things and use in your final. This is training, so we're not gonna use this to sell anything. So this is training. Use generative fills and generative text and all the new tools that you can. Make something new. You can also use the old techniques of using Unsplash and making your own things if you want to, but this is open for you to use the AI tools so you get some practice. Think of the design elements that you're using. Don't forget about those things: color, line, shape, all those. Try to use those in there, and then also think about your design principles that we learned last lesson. Are you going to show me pattern? Are you going to use contrast? Are you going to use proportion to show something that's important? So we're putting a lot of things together in this lesson. I do want a title, so some sort of message needs to be written. You can use the new generative titles if you want to. You can make your own. Try to make that attractive. It's not just blopping some text on that at the end. It's not an afterthought. Text is important, especially for a headline that's going to be maybe the main thing people look at. So some sort of title. Are you selling something? Are you advertising something? Are you trying to influence people to do something? What is the purpose? Who is your audience? Make a title. Subtitles if needed. If you need to say more, say more. If you don't need to, don't. Not a requirement. So that's 4. You're going to make a design, and it's for social media. So use your brain on how to make the right resolution and the right size for social media. And I'll have requirements at the bottom, so if you're not sure. Step 5 is to apply your color psychology knowledge to your design. So let's say you make something in Photoshop, and it's primarily greens and blues. Okay, you've chosen a direction to go for color psychology. Now I want you to make a second design, so save that as a copy and make it another version with different color choices. So maybe it's now red and orange. You might need to use adjustment layers. You might need to do a recolor in Illustrator to make it fit that color scheme. I should get a totally different feeling out of that second design than your first one, just based on your colors. And then you're going to do it a third time. So you should have 3 of the same design in 3 different color schemes when you're done at the end. At the end, I would like one PDF with all 3 color designs in it so I can see them side by side for comparison. So that's going to take you to put those in some program and generate one PDF. I don't want 3 files, I want one that's going to show them all side by side. So good luck on all your new training and your understanding of color psychology, and hopefully this is an entertaining and fun assignment for you.